Hi everyone, Stephanie here. This is the time of the school year when people start looking at oral reading fluency screening data and questions start to come up. So I thought I would share a guide that includes some information about oral reading fluency and about how to improve it. So you can download that from the link that's right here in the comments below this video. But I wanted to start with, why do we use oral reading fluency as a screening tool? Why is it so commonly used? Why has it been used for so many decades now? And that really starts with the relationship between words correct per minute and reading comprehension. For the vast majority of students, maybe as many as 9 out of 10 in first, second, and third grade, if we know their words correct per minute score, we also know a lot about their reading comprehension. Obviously not everything, because 1 minute of behavior can't tell us everything about a student's reading comprehension, which is a very complex skill, right? But it does serve as a very accurate indicator of reading comprehension. And it's a very predictive indicator of reading comprehension. So it gives us that early warning system. Before a student is a struggling reader, we can use oral reading fluency, words correct per minute specifically, to indicate if a student is likely to have trouble with reading comprehension in the future. So when we're looking at oral reading fluency scores, we want to look at the whole picture. And we want to interpret the students' scores on all of the measures: their accuracy score, their words correct score, and their retell score specifically. And there's two sort of common frames of reference for interpreting oral reading fluency scores. You'll see norms and you'll see benchmark goals. And those are two different frameworks. Norms will tell you how a student scored relative to other students who also took the test. And you may have a specific reason why you want to compare a student's score to other students. If that's the question you have, then norms will help you answer that question. Whether it's a local norm or what would be preferred is a national norm. But norms change depending on the group. They change year to year. And so a more stable reference point is the benchmark goal. A benchmark goal with something like Acadience reading is organized to be the lowest acceptable score. It's the lowest score that puts the odds in the student's favor of being an okay reader in the future. And those benchmark goals are specific to the passage. And that's really a consideration even if you're interpreting scores against a norm. Because the passage that was used and the readability level of the passage that went into developing those norms really needs to be considered. They're not universally transferable. So sticking with the method of interpretation that's suggested by the authors, that is specific for the passage that you've used, that's really important. An additional really helpful purpose of oral reading fluency is measuring growth over time. Oral reading fluency is sensitive to small amounts of learning and change over time, so it's a really excellent progress monitoring tool. If you're working with older students, especially second grade and above, you want to use what's called survey level assessment, or if you're using Acadience Reading, they actually have a product for this called Acadience Reading Survey that helps you find, for students who are not performing at grade level, that lower level where you should direct your instruction and the material for progress monitoring. So testing back would be the approach to doing that. And then you might find that your progress monitoring material is actually below grade level material, where you've got that sweet spot where it's not too easy for the student, it's not too hard, so you're not going to see growth just because the material is too difficult. That sweet spot right at that sort of instructional level where you can pick up on small amounts of learning and growth that's happening on a weekly basis. So that would be your frequent progress monitoring material. And then long-term progress monitoring infrequently would be what you're doing 3 times a year when you're screening at grade level. And with most students, that's sufficiently frequent for that. The order of interpreting the scores on oral reading fluency is really important to think about. So across those 3 scores, the accuracy score is the first one that needs to be in place. So if you have a student who's not an accurate reader, we really don't want them to be reading faster, and we certainly don't expect them to understand what they're reading. So with students who are not accurate readers, we don't use repeated reading to improve fluency. We first have to clear up the decoding problem. So this is where a diagnostic assessment is going to really come in handy. Again, if you're using something like Acadian's Reading for your screening for ORF, you can use their diagnostic for word reading and decoding, or 95% Group has an excellent phonics, PSI is their assessment of phonics diagnostic. Or if you need to use something free, it's not as well constructed, but the really great reading phonics survey, or decoding survey, I should say, can be available to you. And you want to make sure that you are identifying those phonics patterns that the student still needs to learn, working on increasing that automaticity with decoding first, building that automaticity and fluency in phrases, in sentences, eventually in passages. And once a student is reading accurately, you can use repeated reading. That really is the gold standard for improving students' fluency. For most students, then, that gives you the platform on which to build the reading comprehension. And the retell assessment is that quick check to tell you, for the students who are already accurate and fluent, are they also understanding what they're reading? So the quick confirmation for those accurate and fluent students. So hopefully this gives you some confidence, some new information to help you understand why you're using oral reading fluency for screening and progress monitoring, and how to interpret those scores to the maximum benefit of your students, focusing on building accuracy first and then fluency. So go ahead to the link that I've included below this video and get that fluency guide.